that was time I was taking away from other parts of my business, like operations and, sales growth and other factors. But ultimately what happened is I just started to spiral into all the minutia of configuration. So that's the point that I realized, is that every day, every hour spending with this and not getting the direct attribution out of it, because I just didn't also have the time or the energy to hand it off and have it grow with someone else.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of My Biggest Marketing Mistake, the podcast where we transform costly failures into priceless insights. I'm your host, Kacy Maxwell, and our episode today is one that every business owner or marketing leader, or honestly anyone investing in technology for a company, needs to hear, because it focuses on the all too common mistake of buying the right technology at the wrong time. More on that in a minute. So this is episode 9, and that means we only have one more episode to close out season 1 of our show. And we've had so many great CEOs come on this show and share their stories. I highly recommend going and checking them out, because each one is filled with valuable business insights that you can use today. Now, we're going to flip the script a little bit for the last episode, and I'm actually going to be jumping in the hot seat and sharing one of my biggest marketing mistakes. And it's a doozy. It only felt fair with all these guests coming on and sharing their mistakes that I should share one of mine as well. So you're going to want to check that out. So today's quote on failure comes from author C.S. Lewis. He said, "Failures, repeated failures, are finger posts on the road to achievement. One fails forward towards success." I love the way he frames failure as just a stop along the journey towards success. So many times we think about failure as a roadblock or something that actually stops you in your tracks. But if we're able to reframe failure as part of the journey, or even better, something that's going to fuel us towards success, it's going to take a lot of that fear out of failing. So make sure to take the lessons of failure from these episodes and propel your business forward. And also, don't be so scared to make some of your own. Today's episode is about something that doesn't just affect early stage or startup companies. It actually is one of the most common mistakes that we see here among people that we work with. And that is investing in technology before your company is actually ready for it. Now, it's really easy to fall for this mistake, right? Over the last 15 years, marketing and technology have become so inseparable that you honestly can't do marketing without technology. It seems like every day a new SaaS platform is born, and they all promise the same thing. We're going to take all of your marketing problems away. And so what do? You invest and you buy that shiny new toy, but then you quickly realize that the implementation, it's not as fast as they said it was going to be, and it doesn't immediately start making money right when you turn it on. And then you're left with this extremely expensive toy that's not as shiny as it was, and now it's costing you a ton of time instead of bringing you the efficiency that it promised. And that's what our story is about today. Our guest today is Jessica Walker, founder and CEO of Care Sherpa, a patient engagement company working with leading healthcare providers to improve the way patients navigate care. Jessica brings a fascinating mix of hospitality and healthcare experience, and also deep insight into how technology can fuel your business. However, even with all of that knowledge, she fell into the same trap that many others do early on in her journey. What was initially supposed to be a decision that was going to cause growth actually became something that was a costly distraction. So in our conversation today, Jessica opens up about why even free technology has a hidden cost, and understanding how a knowledge gap can kill good technology, and the difference between being capable of managing a tool versus being ready to. Lots to unpack today, and we'll hear more right after this. Hey everyone, before we get to today's story, I want to tell you about something cool that we've been working on here at Provisions Group. So I've been a marketer for over 17 years, and so I've often felt the pain of not being able to see what is and what isn't working in my marketing. And while MarTech is supposed to make this easier, it often does the opposite as we cobble together so many different platforms and systems, causing us to lose the crucial visibility that we need to make informed decisions. That's why we created the Core RevOps Assessment to help you get the clarity that you need. Leveraging our core methodology, our team of marketing technologists will work with you to uncover what's happening today and help you crystallize where you're going tomorrow. We start with an audit of your website and CRM to help illuminate the key problems that are causing the breaks in your customer data. Then we work with you to identify and create a comprehensive customer journey, helping you visualize your customer's path with your organization. Then we create a custom roadmap tailored to your project for how we're going to partner to get this done. All in 30 days or less. We can help you get the clarity you need from click to close and start making better marketing decisions today. Check the link in the show notes to learn more. Welcome to the podcast, Jessica. I'm really excited to talk with you about your story, partially because it involves two areas that I work in every day: marketing and technology, and the intersection of those two, and how it impacts your business. So I'm really excited to get in there and hear about this. But I want to ask you a question first, which is the question I ask every CEO that comes on this show is, tell me a little bit about failure. Like how has failure shaped you? How do you approach failure that you feel comfortable coming on a podcast to talk about it?
Well, that's a great question in terms of like taking away the shame, right? So I would say that I'm a failure every single day because I tell my team all the time, if you're not scared, you're not growing. And I believe fundamentally that you have to jump off the ledge and go after something that you don't know the outcome's going to be if you're going to grow. So for me, I think that's my comfort with it, is just embracing it and understanding it. And just not being afraid to fail is very much how I got here with Care Sherpa. Just the ability to say, if you're going to be an entrepreneur and start a business, you have to be willing to risk failing.
Well, I'm glad you are, and I'm glad you're here to talk about it because I think it's going to be a really good story. Because again, one of the reasons we're doing this podcast is the problems that the CEOs that are coming on here to solve, they're common problems. They're challenges of every business. And there are thousands of ways that you can go about solving them, right? And so not everyone will work in every situation. And so unpacking this is going to help those other CEOs or those other marketing leaders that are trying to figure out, is this the right time to move into this technology, right? This is really going to help them. So why don't you kind of set the scene? Tell me a little bit about where Care Sherpa was at this time, and kind of like team makeup, just a little bit about you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So my mind went immediately to 2022, and it was post-COVID, right? And we had received some funding. And so we were at this point of the opposite problem many startups have, and that we actually had cash in the bank. It was like, okay, let's use this to fuel growth, right? So at that time, we were about 12 employees as an organization. We were about $500K in revenue, so in that kind of growth pattern. And that investment in that, money in the bank now, where you didn't have to scrap and save and think about every little last penny. I was like, well, now is the time to invest. And so for us, it was, where do we make smart investments? And drawing on my 20 years of experience in healthcare marketing and working with MarTech and initiating large strategies, my first thought was, I know I need a CRM. And knowing, having been a part of, decision-making with partners to decide on which CRM, for me, I had one choice because I knew the capabilities and the Ferrari that it was. And so that's how we got there.
So, and I love it because you're a different type of CEO. You're a CEO that comes with a ton of marketing experience, right? A lot of CEOs come up through either the financial ranks or maybe even the operational ranks, but you coming up through the marketing ranks, you're even looking at marketing and technology a little differently. And you even wrote an article that basically you kind of went against. So tell me a little bit about that article that you wrote.
Sure. Well, and I'll correct you a little bit, Kacy. I'm actually not a marketer by trade. I like to tell people that I'm a marketer by accident. But what I am is someone that's a geek out on data, right? And had been a consultant and helping organizations, specifically health systems, with their growth strategies and tactics. And so you start digging into marketing and how those things work. And I naturally wanted to say, well, is there an ROI, for XYZ investment? And that's how I guide my clients, right? And so very much in my mind, CRMs were a big part. I would see time and time again when selected appropriately, when invested in appropriately, and when given the tools, and you can get tremendous ROI from the investment. So for me, that's what made this decision very easy. Like that's the first thing I'm going to invest in because I know there is return, and that's the foundation that the house is built upon. But you referenced the article, and what the article I spoke to, this was I think back in 2017 when I was doing my consulting, is you don't buy a CRM unless you're ready to actually invest in it. Right. I likened it to a Porsche or a high-end sports car. It's beautiful. It's flashy. It's sexy. We're all like, oh my gosh, that's going to look great in my driveway. And it's going to do all these amazing things for me. But if you don't have the gas to put in the tank, then that car is just going to sit in your driveway and you'll be making very expensive payments. And that was my kind of comment with many CRMs is that we, jump to it because it's the silver bullet that we think in marketing is going to solve all of our things and all of our problems. But the aha is that until you are ready to truly invest in it, and I tell, now and even back then, the amount of money that you spend on the solution, you need to be prepared to spend as much with the resources and the backing of the people and the processes to get that full investment. And that's where many people miss. And I'm here to tell you, and this is our conversation, I did the exact same thing when I was in the driver's seat. Because I was like, oh, I'm going to drive the Porsche. I know how to drive a Porsche. And ended up in the same place.
So you write an article that gets some visibility, gets some traction about most healthcare companies don't need a CRM. Mm-hmm. It's very like what it very kind of arresting when you read it. But your whole thesis of that is you're often buying a CRM because you think it is the silver bullet, right? Yep. It's the thing that is going to fix everything. And honestly, that's the way that most marketers think about technology.
Yep.
I call it, it's funny because I call it like marketer on marketer violence because B2B marketers are so good at selling their solutions, yes. B2B SaaS, right? Mm-hmm. Because they know marketing, they know their pain and their struggles, and so they can sell their product as if it's going to solve everything. And your whole thesis, which I 100% agree with, is a CRM can be a core system for driving your business forward if you have the right processes in place, right? You got to understand your funnel. You got to understand that process. Yes. You got to understand all of the different things so that you can say, the CRM is going to make that better. Mm-hmm. It's going to help automate it. Like the amount of times that we have people coming to us and saying, hey, I need you to build me some automations. My response is usually, okay, tell me the process today. Oh, we don't have one. Yeah. What do you mean? You don't have a process? No. We want you to automate a process. Well, you have to have a process to be able to automate it, right? And so they often put the cart before the horse.
100%.
And so your whole thesis was don't jump into a CRM unless you understand everything you need about the business and have the money to invest. Mm-hmm. However, you start a business, you get in there, and you make the decision to jump on the CRM. So tell me a little bit about, the exception fallacy or, whatever we call it, of why you thought you were different in this situation and it made sense for you.
Oh, very much. And also the fallacy, which again, we're like you talked about businesses marketing to each other businesses. I mean, I also fell for the marketing ploy, which is, hey, startup, we're going to go ahead and give you 1 year free and you're not going to pay a cost. And so in my mind, hey, no direct cost. I know the value of the CRM and gosh, I need one. So this is a great, business investment in terms of my next steps of my company. And the fallacy in that is that going back to didn't eat my own cooking in this is that I didn't say, well, beyond me as the CEO that has experience, who else is going to, take this and run with it and let it actually have legs? And that was the fundamental fail. Is that my company was not ready. I didn't have the people and the resources beyond me. And as we know, as a leader, you're already split 6 ways from Sunday. And if we go back to, healthcare marketers, especially in my experience, they're searching for this silver bullet because they are wearing so many hats. And they're like, oh, if this one thing can solve it for me, then that's a great investment. And the fallacy is that it is a strategy that needs to be, supported and needs to be invested in terms of somebody waking up every morning and saying, this is my full-time job. This is my full-time focus. That's how you get real ROI out of any solution, CRM or otherwise. So for me, though, falling for the, hey, 1 year free, get going. And, and we won't name drop which CRM we use, which which one it is, but it's like best in class. And it is truly the best. And I would endorse them today. Right. But for me, the fail point was, even though it wasn't direct out of my pocket expense, it was my time and my energy and the configuration and building all the templates and building all the automations. And if I look back now, my time and attention, right? That was time I was taking away from other parts of my business, like operations and, sales growth and other factors. And it's great if it's going to have a long tail, right, for that ROI. But ultimately what happened is I just started to spiral into all the minutia of configuration, all the minutia of, to your point, oh, well, wait, I haven't written out this sequence. I haven't written out this contact series. I need to spend time to do that. And this was days, again, before GPT exists, right? So maybe it'd be a little bit different today. But regardless, so that's the point that I realized, is that every day, every hour spending with this and not getting the direct attribution out of it because I just didn't also have the time or the energy to hand it off and have it grow with someone else.
Yeah, when you think of implementing any technology, there's the problem. You start with the problem. The technology is often part of the solution, right? This technology is going to enable me to do X, Y, and Z. And the buyer and decision maker is often not the person that's actually going to be using the tool.
Who's the hands on the keyboard? Right, exactly.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so they're making the decision to say, I understand what this does. I understand where it fits in my tech stack, where it fits in my organization, and I'm going to buy it. And then I'm going to expect company XYZ, whether it's a consulting company who's implementing it or the company itself, you will teach my team how to use this and build it and implement it and do all of this stuff. And a lot of times our team, and I've been guilty of this so many times, where I see a problem, right? I see a problem in my organization and I'm like, this tool's going to solve it. Go out, buy it. And then I give it to the team and I'm like, here, this will solve your problem. Go do it. And they're like, I didn't even know that was a problem.
Yeah.
And now I've got to figure out how to use a tool that I didn't buy. I really wasn't involved in.
Yeah.
And using a tool and learning anything, there is a curve, right?
Well, and double clicking on that for a moment too, and that's a good point I want your listeners to think about as well, is that, as a leader, again, you are the visionary. You see what the outcome could be. You know the benefit. So of course you're going to chase after that. And you're spot on. I did the same thing. I was the only one involved in that decision to buy it because I'm like, I'm the expert in the room. Of course I know what I'm doing, right? But I didn't bring my team along also to get the buy-in. So the other fallacy or failure point is that, 100%, I'm not going to be the end user hands-on keyboard, for the next year or 2 years beyond. And so now if you drop something in your team's lap to say, oh, by the way, I just bought this, widget for you. And now I want you to, completely disrupt your day, your work day, and your role responsibilities to now bring it to full life. That's not a great way to execute a successful strategy, right? And especially as a young company, when you're just like keeping all the plates spinning at all times, if I could unwind, that'd been another part of it, is stopping to think, what do I need from it? What do I expect from it? Who's the end user, fingers on keyboard? And, what time can I invest myself as well as this other resource to really fully make it happen? And without doing that, beyond just getting excited about the hype and excited about what it could do, again, beautiful Porsche sat in my driveway, collected dust.
So you get you buy the CRM and you get going. How long did it take you to realize, oh, this was a mistake? Like, had you actually implemented it, really started putting time and effort into it? Kind of unpack, like, what signs were you seeing that maybe you pushed down and said, oh, no, I'll figure that out. Like, how long did it take? Well,
and you bring up a good point earlier too around not considering who's going to help with the implementation, if it's self-taught versus you're going to have outside resources. So, that was another part too. Again, I've built them, I've worked in them, and I thought, well, sure, if it was my full-time job and that's all I was thinking about, I absolutely could have implemented in a very short period of time. But what the reality was, right, is that the first 30 days, I was gung-ho, I've got everything in there, I'm starting to build it at night and on the weekends, because of course I can't do it during the day, right? And then, slowly over time, that enthusiasm, that excitement waned because other things became a priority for me. And so then it was like, oh, now I've got to, all right, well, maybe Thursday night I'll work on it. And And so I would say that it was a good 60 days in to the initiative where I just felt my mood started to change about guilt because I wanted to. I had all intentions. I had all goals. I had great intent. But the guilt of not spending the time on it that I needed, right? And it was 90 days before I even deployed any initiative or campaign or any of the analytics out of it, because that was just that time to build it, to configure it, to, get all my data, clean and beautiful. Because again, I'm a data snob and got way too, down the rabbit hole on that. But it was around the 90-day mark that I also said, okay, is this scalable for me? Is this realistic? So I spent another 30 days kind of talking to partners and saying, is there someone else that can pick up this baton? Is there an employee that I have that, maybe has experience and has passionate about this and da-da-da. And so it was probably another 30 days after that where it just sat and collected dust. And so really, I didn't even think about it again until, certain things would pop up and then I would get furious about it. But it was at the point of the 1 year when the free trial was coming up, when the renewal fee or hit my credit card. That was the moment where I was like, okay, nope, for this, I'm not going to get the ROI. I can't continue. It's not this is not my season for this investment. Right. So, from a learning perspective, there was immediate regret, there was immediate awareness, and then just the deprioritization. And so it wasn't until, of course, the financial hit came that really made me say, what's the decision on this?
Yeah. So when it's kind of sitting collecting dust,
Mm-hmm.
you had bought it for a specific purpose, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You had built it so that it would start generating revenue,
Mm-hmm.
and there's only so much time and energy you're going to be able to dedicate to it. So, how much of a, like, when it's a financial investment, there's time, there's build, there's all of that kind of stuff. What would you is there any way you can estimate, like, man, how much did I waste in this?
I mean, I don't want to call the whole thing a waste, right? Because obviously, as I had to build out my templates, and fortunately enough to, again, listeners, kind of pro tip here, build it first on your system, right? So I built it all in my Google environment, my Google Docs, so I could have all the drafts and everything on my end, not so that way you could copy paste versus like putting it just in the tool because the tool goes away, right? So not a total waste because at least I retained what I built then, right? But then in terms of the actual time, and again, this goes back to guilt and regret, but this goes back to the top of the conversation with failure. Failure is a lesson, right? So what did I learn in this? Again, I learned not my season, learned that, I need to think about this more with intention and resources. But kind of collectively, if I were to stack all my time spent, it was probably a good 45 days worth of like my mind share that did not directly show ROI for my business. So great lessons. So again, I can, put the positive spin on it that still I learned something from the experience. But I have this feeling of like, gosh, that time could have been spent if I would have, thought about it before I jumped in.
You can say, oh, that's 45 days. Yeah. Oh, that's 45 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a big deal. When you are the head of an organization and you are running, like, spending 45 days, it's massive,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then there's team and headspace and all of the things that you were thinking it was going to do, mind share, all of that. So it's one of those things that if you get excited about it or jump into something too soon, there's a lot of stuff that's going to, down the road that's gonna tumble.
Well, it's the untrackable cost, right? You can say, oh, I bought this, software, I bought this solution, and maybe it was $30 a month, right? But then at the end of the day, to your point, the mind share, the time spent, that if you really put $1, so I've been trying to do that more lately, where I put a dollar amount to my hourly, like if I had to calculate an hour, what would that look like? And when you put a number that way, that's where you get sick and get like, oh my gosh, right? That cash in the business could have gone somewhere else. So now, as I think about, we actually just deployed a new solution in a different realm, but it has this kind of some of the flavors of what we were doing back then. And I've approached it completely different. Like was part of the buying, team, but not the buyer, right? And I brought my team along, and we spent some time to kind of map out who's the owner, what's the timeline, what does reasonable steps look like for us to get XYZ deploy and get live, and what would success look like in our first 30, 60, 90. Just a completely different kind of mindset, right? So going back to failure is the best teacher. That's what I learned out of it. It was okay. Now another solution that we know we're going to make an impact, because we're also doing a trial with this solution to say, which another lesson, I negotiated differently to make sure I had, some trial period. But that's it. So now we're going to look at it from a different lens.
So anytime you're thinking about technology, yes, you got to identify the solution, the problem, then the solution, then you got to think about how much is it going to cost, right? And when you think about cost, and again, just to reiterate it, it's not just the cost of the subscription.
No.
It's not even just the cost of the implementation, right? It is the time and the energy of you, the team, and ongoing. Because one of the things, and I'd love to talk a little bit about post-implementation of technology, because I think that is a very, very key part of the success or failure of any sort of technology. The last stat that I heard was 68% of CRM implementations fail.
Oh, I'm going to bet you it's a lot higher than that.
And it's
report it.
Yes, it's probably much higher. And you think about why is that happening? Why are CRMs that are so pivotal to a business failing? And I think there's a couple reasons. One of it comes down to what we talked about earlier. You don't have a clear funnel, clear pipeline, clear business processes that you are activating with the CRM. The other is on the actual post-implementation side, the uptake. So talk a little bit about that.
I go a further step, and we didn't plan this, and I'd say an example of why you'd need a provisions group, right? Is that you're not an expert in this solution, right? Now, I came into knowing CRMs probably more than the average bear, and all that configuration, et cetera. However, there's still a limitation when we talk about complex integrations or talk about complex, kind of automations. And that's another thing that we don't think about when we're making this decision of, yeah, I can learn it and I could spend all YouTube University and go find all these ways, or maybe they've got a great support library. But at the end of the day, is that going to be my new full-time job that I'm going to spend my time on from here on out? Or is the cost benefit of, and again, this was not intended to be a plug for provisions, but is it the cost benefit of working with a partner that knows what they're doing? Or, when you buy a software, so like the one I just mentioned, we actually purchased a higher level of service from them with the intentionality that I don't want to learn all the nuances of how to do X and Y and Z. It's a box of Legos. I don't want to build it all. I want you to build it for me and then give me the keys, right? And so we just make that decision. And there's some solutions, right, that you need to have in-house and you do need to have someone be an expert in. But really evaluating that to say, is the time, worth it for me to buy the lower cost solution or software and then learn my way up? Or do I buy the Cadillac and then get, Cadillac level service to implement so that we can hit the ground running? If I had to go back in time and go back to that 2022 conversation with myself, that's literally what if I do it again, I would say, bring me a service team that I give them the direction, the vision, tell them what I want, and I could trust but verify because I know I could tap into the system and view it, but let it get done. And in that 90-day period, I could have been off to the races and seeing the direct ROI. More spend, but immediate return.
When do you think most new technology changes from a MarTech perspective happen in an organization?
I mean, the majority, so it's when you've got new leadership. In my experience, right? New leadership comes in, they've got a vision, they get excited about, something, and then therefore, it's then cascaded down to the rest of the teams to make this happen, right? Or, so at that point, you've got this new leadership coming in and potentially like some new capital coming in, but it's typically driven by the leader, in my experience.
100%. And the reason is, and again, I can say mean things about marketers because I am a marketer. One of the main reasons is because it's hard to learn all these different technologies.
Right. So if you've used a solution somewhere else, you're like, oh, I know how amazing it is. I'm going to bring it here. Yep. And I'm going to turn it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so you may go in and you've got a whole tech stack, you've got a CRM, you've got a website that's on a platform. If you don't know how to use that, the learning curve is significant versus I'm just going to buy and implement a new technology. And so I think it's really, really important when you think about technology to think about who is going to be using it and how long it's going to take to implement it. Because one of the interesting things is a lot of times when we talk about technology blocking marketing, and the reason we say that is it's not like your technology is actually wrong. It's blocking because people don't know how to use it. Like they may use HubSpot at their previous company, and then they move here, and you've got Salesforce and Pardot. And while arguably they can accomplish much of the same things, they're built differently, right? There's
it's different language.
It's different language.
Foreign languages, right? So you talk about I learned German versus French, and they both can do amazing, wonderful things. But yeah, ultimately, do you want to learn French? And that's where you want to then change your entire organization to think about French, or do you, so, and I try to put it in that context too of, how, and also the concept was some of these solutions when you're evaluating them, how common are they amongst kind of your industry? So if I had to poach talent and bring people in-house to also help support this, can I find talent that already knows the solution as well? Like that's another kind of strategy that some people don't think about when they're selecting a partner.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I'm having CEOs come on this show is all marketing decisions eventually roll up to the CEO, right? They're the ones that green light everything. And a lot of times, technology leaders or even CEOs, when they look at a technology budget related to marketing, they look at it as just the line item of it. And they're like, does the CRM really need to be that expensive? Do we really need to pay this outside group to come in and implement it? Do we really need this? Can we get, well, what about this CRM? It's so much cheaper than everything else, and it kind of does all the same things. And if you're just doing it on that, then you got to find somebody that's used that, right?
Absolutely.
You got to be able to go and say, I'm going to either hire a company, an outside company to be that. And we're that, like you said, we are that for a lot of companies. We are the outsourced, we are the experts. We come in and help on both the marketing strategy side as well as the CRM and kind of tie it all together in your website. And we can do all of that. But you need to also be thinking about what does that look on your side? Because if 100% of the intelligence around your platforms lies on an outside third party, you are setting yourselves up for failure, right?
Yeah. And I think about, I use the car reference in that article about the Porsche, right? So sometimes I talk about this with my client partners as well, like the Kia, the Mazda, the Porsche, right? So those are your choices when you look at, you're going to buy a software solution, let's say, or any kind of solution. But you have to tell yourself, there's a reason why the Porsche is the price it is. And, again, if you want, that experience and you want that excellence and you want, reliability, whatever that is, or the sex appeal, right? Even talk about that. The Kia is also the price it is for a reason. And so if you look at, the lower price software solution, it'll get you from here to there, but for how long? And then how many times does it, break down and the reliability? And so what I have found is that if we kind of lay it out that way and say, if we're not ready to invest in the Porsche, do we invest in the Mazda, but then bring in the Porsche team to help us deploy? Because if I'm going to save in between, but then I know I can dev on it or I can graduate up to the Porsche once I'm a big girl company, like that's a great strategy. But buying the Kia, you will always end up paying the Porsche price later because of through having to fix it, having to, all the workarounds you have to build. And so, that's, those are the hard decisions you think through, but putting that in that frame as you think through it. And again, think about your pit crew, right? Using the car analogy further, really helps you examine it from the lens of not just the dollars on the one thing, but the untracked dollars too.
Yep. And you can't really do marketing without technology anymore.
Yeah.
Like start looking at a lot of those budgets together. Where does a website fall? Whose budget does it fall in? Does it fall in the marketing or the technology? A CRM? Is it in marketing? Is it ops? Like we've had conversations with just CTOs that are buying a platform, and I go sit on the call and I'm like, well, what's your marketing strategy? What's the strategy for that? And they're like, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm like, well, how do you know? And it's funny. I've used the same analogy. Like you're going to get this Cadillac. You're going to get this amazing car. But if your person doesn't know how to drive it, if your marketing person doesn't know how to drive it,
and you spot one of them,
right. It's not going to solve your problem, and it may fit perfectly into your architecture and your infrastructure and all the stuff that is super important. Yes, just like marketing should never make a full CRM decision without technology being involved, right? So that they understand, because I've been sold numerous times on numerous MarTech that then when I give it to my technology leader, they're like, well, what about this? What about this? What about protecting this? What about connection? Like sometimes if you go with those super cheap solutions, which are great, and depending on your stage, it may be the only thing that you can do, how it connects with something. Like you think of, and again, it's not a plug for HubSpot, but you think of HubSpot. HubSpot has apps pre-built for almost everything out there. Right? You get some of these smaller CRMs, and yes, you can connect it, but you're going to have a team build those connections. And so you're saving money on the actual thing, but you got to build all the infrastructure around that. And so there are so many hidden costs in there.
And I would say, because it also makes me think about my days working with health systems, and where the CTO or the CIO would be the one to drive the decision to say, oh, we've already bought Salesforce. We use it on this side of the business. So, hey, marketing, you go ahead and use it too, because we've already bought it, right? Or, any of those solutions that are technology only driven. And so then similarly, then marketing is hitting their head against the wall, trying to get it to do what they need to do. And it wasn't built for that. And so I am a big fan, and going back to my story here, so just, first full circle for your listeners, what I sell to health systems is that we build a turnkey kind of sales funnel, including a CRM for them. I have a technology that does that. But I knew that my technology that helps them build their sales funnel was not what I needed to support my own B2B activity. So yes, I could have bastardized it. I could have used it. I could have tweaked it. I could have worked with it. I could have brought in some outside technology, where the better solution is, let me find something that's built for what I need specifically. So, that is another element you have to think through of, where's your list of criteria and your outcome, but it has to be driven by what's the ROI look like and what's the, ultimate success factors. And ROI may not be dollars in the door, but it may be, other things that are incremental.
So, just to kind of sum up, we actually talked about a lot of failures, right? A lot of different things.
Yeah.
And one of the things is just bias. Like you came at that solution, which we all do, with sort of like a confirmation bias, or a bias of like, I know I'm going to be able to do this, even though I said this isn't the right thing. I'm different. So how do you tell people about how to think through that? Like how to expose our biases? How do you do that so that you don't make those mistakes again?
Well, for me, I think this is also an evolution of leadership as well, is that, I before I started my company, I was an independent consultant working, managing my client relationships, and I just got to make all the shots, and because I would do what was best, right? But as you grow and evolve, you have to realize, I'm not the smartest person in the room. And the more voices I get from outside, the better decisions I make. And so the difference then compared to now is that I made that decision in a vacuum and just was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get it done. I'm a big GSD person, right? Versus now it is like the conversation of, okay, let me bring in, this voice. Let me bring in this voice, get their perspective. I may still be leaning towards, but I also ask my people to give me a feedback, say, tell me why I shouldn't do this. Give me the contrarian perspective. What am I not thinking about? Like, I specifically open the door to ask them to help me maybe see where my blind spots are. So I think in general, when you're evaluating any solution, for your business, the more voices, even outside of your company, the solution that we just brought in recently, I was sharing you with, we sought out independent users, that were using it in other businesses, not even related to ours, just to see what was the good, the bad, the ugly, and where the body's buried. Like, what did you wish you knew 2 years in that you didn't know, right, when you signed on the dotted line? And just spending that time up front, I think, is also how you're going to map out your success factors in a different way and make sure that you are not being biased. And I get it. Like I'm all about like the whiz bangy, like, let's go. There's a cool new solution. And I do have to slow myself down. And that is hard because you are the visionary and you want to go. But recognizing that cost, the hidden cost is going to bury my business faster than anything else.
I love that. And the new thing now, CRMs are still hot. I mean, the growth of those are crazy. But AI is the new thing, right?
Yep.
AI is going to solve all the things that was bad about your data, right? And the problems that most CRMs don't work on. And you said this early on. You're a data nerd, like you wanted to get your data perfect. AI needs good data for it to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so AI and all the tools are saying, hey, we got AI, we got AI, we got AI. Just because a CRM, just because a technology has AI, it is not going to solve all of your data issues. So again, that's a marketer PSA. Anybody going out, like a marketer that says this is going to solve everything with AI, ask a few more questions.
And I'll add, again, those who are like not always friends of marketing is in healthcare as well, is bringing in that compliance voice as well. Like there's some amazing AI solutions I would love to bring to my clients, but as I brought in my compliance partners, again, I'd rather, I built my career of ask for forgiveness later, but in this world with AI, I'm like, I don't know what I don't know. And I need to kind of bring in those voices. There are things that are not ready for us yet. I can't take that risk. And so, that again goes to, and I don't want Debbie Downers. I want people to like see my vision, get excited with me, but give me the other lens to make sure I'm being smart about it. And that's probably my biggest piece with the AI as well. Like there's wonderful solutions. Just make sure it's in a compliant way that meets your business and doesn't put you at a greater risk.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for coming on here to talk about this. I mean, making sure that you're getting outside counsel, that's always good advice. Making sure that you're weighing the costs from the software to the implementation to after, right? How are we going to integrate this into our business? Thinking about your team, making sure that the people who have hands-on keyboards are going to be part of the decision so that they understand and are bought in and get the strategy and how they do that. And then potentially bringing in the right outside voices, whether that is a partner, whether that is just a friend or a mentor, like somebody out there to help you make sure that you're not making this decision via your own biases. These are amazing lessons that are going to be really, really helpful for people. So thank you for bringing this story and being willing to share it with our audience.
Thanks, Kacy. It was a lot of fun today.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of My Biggest Marketing Mistake. We hope you got a lot of valuable takeaways that you can apply to your business today. And we got a lot more great episodes coming your way, so make sure to like, review, and subscribe to know when the next episode comes out.